I'm Victor Fernandez of Fernandez Fit, and I'm here to show you why fitness is our business. Hello and welcome once again to the Healthy Lives, Healthy Business podcast. I am your host, Victor Fernandez, and I appreciate you joining me as you do each and every week. And this week being episode number 99 in the show's nearly 3-year history. I actually didn't know that till about a few hours before we were recording this episode. I happened to went back and looked, and sure enough, it was. For the first 98 episodes, I can say that there had never been a repeat guest on this show. Can't say that anymore, and it's for good reason. My next guest has been a great source of knowledge and inspiration for me since he first appeared on this show back in December of 2022. I admire who he is, what he stands for personally and professionally, and really his riveting personal story, how he rose from humble beginnings to build an industry-leading 7-figure GPS tracking and dashboard camera installation company, and then grew into a successful high-level business coach for entrepreneurs who refuse to be average and are crushing 7+ figures in the business world. Through his unwavering belief that success begins with taking small steps forward daily, he also has become a sought-after public speaker, 2-time best-selling author, and host of the Step It Up Entrepreneur podcast, where he has interviewed industry leaders, influencers, high-level business and success coaches, business owners, entrepreneurs, you name it, who are impacting their communities and the world at large. I learned so much from him during his first time on the show. I know I'm going to learn so much more from him today. So please welcome to the show, Tomas Keenan. Thomas, how are you doing, my friend?
Victor, sir, it is an honor to be back here and an honor to be your first repeat guest. I really appreciate that. And look, as a fellow podcast host, 99, dude, you're in it. You're committed, right? I mean, I'm at, I think 250, 51, 52 at this point, right? And like somebody told me when I first started podcasting, hey, if you're going to do this, it's a long game. And I said, okay. I didn't really know what he meant at the time. But here I am. You know, it's 4, almost 5 years, I guess. And I haven't quit. And you clearly, sir, you haven't quit, right? You've kept going. And that's awesome because the stats say 3 to 7 episodes is where most people bow out when it comes to podcasting. Everyone wants to, I'm going to go do Joe Rogan. Yeah, it doesn't work that way. It's not so easy. A lot of work has to get put into the back end of this thing.
And I have to admit, I mean, I've stopped a few times along the way. There's exactly the third iteration of this podcast. It's metamorphosed, if you will, over time, and the people that I'm trying to reach have changed over time. But ultimately, I mean, you enjoy sharing with people, helping impact people, as do I. And that's why I wanted to bring you back on the show, because I know for me, there's very few people that I follow that I can say every time I read a post of his or hers, I come away with something that I can implement into my life personally, professionally, or both. You're one of those handful of people that I can say that. I'm always looking to see what you're posting about because I know how much it could help me, moving forward. And I was reading one of your posts from earlier this week that read, and I'm going to quote it so I don't butcher it. Said, most people only take notice when they see success. But to anyone who's had any amount of success in their lives, you know it was due to countless hours behind the scenes. Then you go on to say, very few people take notice of the small actions taken daily over time. These small actions compound over time, bringing your overnight success to reality. It's the social media world. We see the highlights. We don't see everything else that goes on that creates those highlights. How challenging is it to impress upon people who want that quick ROI in today's we want it right now society to take those steps and understand it is a long game?
My feeling is this. If you take steps and actions to get the quick win today, as fast as the win comes in, as fast as it's going right out the door. It's kind of like I have personal experience with losing weight that way also. Right? Do some crash diet and drop 20 pounds in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, whatever it is. And then 2 weeks later, you're 10 pounds heavier than when you initially started. Whereas You come in, you work with a trainer, you start doing it the right way, you start to dial in the diet, you start going into the calorie deficit, and you're going for, all right, maybe a pound a week solid.
Mm-hmm.
All right, it's going to take you 10 times as long, but you and I both know that the weight that you lost, unless you do something drastic, is going to stay off.
Oh, 100%. I tell people all the time, said, people have focused on my story when I talk about I lost 75 pounds to get to where I am now. What they don't understand, and it's a part of the story that I reiterate often, is if I went back and added it all up, I've probably lost several hundred pounds over the years.
Yeah.
The only difference between 75 and several hundred is those several hundred I gained back and then some.
Yeah.
And that's what people don't understand is back then I was trying to get the quick fix. I wanted it done and I wanted it done now. And like I said, it simply does not work that way. So for you, how did you avoid that mentality when you started getting into the business world and trying to build your name, your brand, your business, and your success story?
That's a good question, man. I had people who had been here, done that, who kind of led the path. I come from an entrepreneurial family, and full transparency, not a successful entrepreneurial family. So, aunts, uncles, mom, dad, they all did small business at some level, but never took it really serious and also never really succeeded with it either. So I had the beginnings down, like, hey, how do you, first off, this is a reality, you can do it. Because there's a lot of people out in America right now who's like, I didn't even know you could start a business, right? I understood that you could start a business. I understood you could do whatever you wanted to do in business for the most part. You've had a passion for something, go do it. But the beginnings were there because I had people in my life and in my corner who were like, yeah, I've started this thing before. I can get you to that point. But after that, I'm not your guy, right? That took me banging my head against the wall and crashing and burning the first business hard and coming out in the backside, 80 something $1,000 in debt, right? Versus, okay, go back to work for someone for a couple of years, get back on your feet. Let's start the new one. And I made all of the same mistakes 5 years into it. And at that 5-year mark, I was like, I need help. And at that point in time, yeah, I needed help, but I also had a little bit of cash flow coming in where I could afford to hire the coach and the consultants that we needed. And that right there was the game changer for me. My first coach I hired, his name was Richard, older dude, big overweight guy, just been in like corporate America his whole life and did some small business stuff. And day one, he's like, you're going to work with me, you're going to read. And I was like, yo, does this guy know who he's talking to? I don't have time to read. Yeah, I'm driving behind the wheel all day long in this service-based business, going from job site to job site. He's like, yeah, funny excuse. Go buy the audiobook.
Always a solution to every problem.
Correct. And you know what? Like, was Richard the best coaching consultant out there? No, he wasn't. But he was what I needed at that time in my life. He's the one who said, you're going to work with me, you're going to do this, or we're just not going to work together. And I didn't know who else to, you got to understand something. Going back, it's not that long ago. This is 2010, 11, 12, 2013-ish, right? 2014-ish. Mm-hmm. What's available on your Google search now is 100x what was available then. So the coaching industry hadn't infiltrated the interwebs like it has to this point in time. So finding someone who, had the credentials, who had the skill set to help you was challenging, especially when, me thinking small at the time was like, well, I can only work with a local guy. I don't know who else is out there in this scary world. Right. I barely left the tri-state area growing up in Long Island, New York at that point in time in my life. I had traveled a little bit with family, but work-wise, like I was stuck in my bubble. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until I expanded outside of my bubble that I was like, doesn't really matter where this person is. If they can hop on a call with me, a Zoom, whatever, occasionally meet maybe in person, we can make this work.
Oh, 100%. I know for me, that was the scariest aspect of, to this day, of launching and building my business, was asking for help. Because that's how I was raised. You took care of yourself. The old, if you want it done right, you do it yourself, ideal. And asking for help was a sign of weakness. Mm-hmm. That's old school. That's how I was raised. I'm 52, about to be 53. That's how I was raised, for good or bad. I love my family. That's how you did it yourself. You took care of yourself, which is a good trait to have. But at the
Mhm.
same time, like you said, when sometimes you need to be able to step back and say, all right, it's not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength that I'm asking for help. And that was the hardest. I mean, it took me at least a good solid year into my business before I finally pulled the trigger and said, I'm going to work with somebody. Why is it so hard for people who want to be successful, like you are, like I want to be, to ask for help when we know we need it?
I think you nailed it. And I'll give you a couple aspects from my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we have this self-limiting belief that's been imposed upon us by society and family, whether we know it or not. We've been indoctrinated into that. And especially as everyone has ego, right? And ego is not necessarily a bad thing. Ego is here to protect us.
Mm-hmm.
But ego has a lot to do with it, right? Like, ego, like, I don't need your help. Like, I'm the boss. Okay, calm down there, big guy. Like, no, but seriously, we don't want to seem weak in front of others in society, whether it's other males, females is irrelevant. We don't want to show up as the weak party. And then if you track that back to hundreds, thousands of years ago, right, when we had this different mindset, like that could literally get you killed,
Mm-hmm.
right? And now that's just not the case. So I think it has a lot to do with what's ingrained in our DNA as human beings, and it's not easy for a lot of people to do it, and then you have some people who rather struggle bust through everything till the end all, and those people, sometimes they turn out successful, sometimes they don't. I'm at a point in time now where it's like, asking for help doesn't necessarily get easier. However, being someone who has asked for help on multiple occasions in areas where I was not the expert, and seeing what a true expert could deliver for me or help me create, like co-create with me, it's like, whoa. And oh, by the way, it happened 10 times faster because I had someone who's been there, done that, helping me do it.
I know for you, you mentioned early on about your first business. It didn't succeed, it failed. And I think that's, to this day, I've been doing this now. I'm going on 4 years with my business, where compared to what you've done, is it's still in its infancy. But I still have that fear every day. It never goes away. Especially, you have a family, I have a family, this is how we support our family. So we take care of our family. And that's, to this day, my biggest fear, is have this fail. So for somebody who hasn't been in that position, but so can only imagine what that feels like, how did you get through that? How did you pick yourself back up, dust yourself off, and go do it again,
Yeah.
knowing there's no guarantees?
That's insanity, right? Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result.
Yeah.
The first one hurt bad, and I was a cocky 21-year-old kid when I started my business, or 20-year-old kid. I was really good at the trade. Okay, I was a fantastic audio installer, car audio installer, and thought I could just do it better than the boss. Started the business and learned real fast. Like, wow, I'm great in the car. I'm terrible in the office, and everything else in between. But you don't want to. Your ego gets in the way, and you don't want to accept that or swallow that tough pill.
Mm-hmm.
So I rode that thing out until the very last moment, until I literally couldn't pay for anything, and I had the lights and the gas and stuff shut off in my shop. I couldn't afford to pay the rent to the landlord, and at that time was one of the most difficult phone calls I had to make in my life. Was like, "Hey, Scott, landlord, this is your tenant in the building that you own. Oh, by the way, your store, he owned a pet store. He was like 3 stores over from me in the shopping center. I just went over there tonight with a rented truck and a buddy's pickup truck, and I cleaned out the entire facility, and I have nothing left to pay you. Like, I can't give you 10 cents right now. It's that bad." And that was a difficult phone call to make. And like, dude, talk about a kick to the ego. Right. So here I am, this cocky 25-year-old kid who's great in the car, who just like completely self-sabotaged his first business because he didn't know any better. And the real blow wasn't necessarily making the phone call. It was after when I started working for somebody else, because up to that point, you go to a barbecue, someone's having a 4th of July get together, and you meet in the backyard, and you're standing over the grill, maybe having a drink or two and cooking some steaks or burgers. Victor, what do you do for a living? Oh, I do. Oh, Tom, what do you do? Oh, I have my own business. And as a young 20-year-old saying that, it's like, it's kind of odd, but cool. And now all of a sudden, I can no longer say that I'm Tom, the business owner. And that was a massive blow to my ego. And dude, it crippled me hard. Took a job as a 12-volt manager of a aftermarket automotive store that did everything: lift kits, wheels, tires, accessories, all cool stuff on cars and trucks. And was making, I don't know, probably less than $1,000 a week at the time, but that's what I could get paid. And it was a solid job, and it was a solid individual, a solid company. And I knew he wasn't going to stiff me, if that makes sense. I didn't know from hole in the wall, but something inside just said, hey, this is a good dude who's going to look out for you. Sure as shit, he did. I'm still friends with the guy to this day. And every time that I go back to New York, I try to go out to a store and see him and remind him and say thank you. Because I learned a lot from that guy. And, that's just, there's always people who are going to help you along the way. Right. And I don't care how successful you get or unsuccessful you get, but you have to remember the people who went out of their way to assist you and help you. And some of the things that, his name's Jimmy, by the way, if he's ever listening to this, Jimmy Speed World, love you, brother. He was the kind of guy that would, living in the Northeast at the time, winter comes along and we get bad weather, whether it's rainstorms, thunderstorms, snow, everything in between. And his store was an hour from where I was living. An hour commute with no traffic. You roll the New York bullshit into there, and it's an hour and a half each way at least.
There's no such thing as no traffic in New York. You know that, especially on Long Island.
Yeah, yeah. So, we would run into these days where we just get bad weather, roll in the middle of the day, and I think it was probably the 3rd or 4th day I was actually working for the guy. And he's like, hey, we got bad weather coming in. He goes, go home tonight, whatever. But he's like, next time, he goes, from now on, I want you to keep a bag of clothes in your car, change of clothes, and all the things you need to get yourself ready in the morning. And anytime you want, here's the keys to my house. You come stay with me. And super successful guy. And he had a really cool setup. His parents had this house, and in the 1960s, he's a Greek guy. 1960s, had this house, and it was like vacation house for him and his brothers, sisters, and his mom and his dad. And it was all the way in the east end of Long Island in wine country. All right, so he grew up in Astoria, Queens, right by the city, and they used to go out east for summer vacation and weekends and whatnot. So his parents pass away. He's successful. His brothers and sisters are successful. They all move out of state, and he's the only one left in New York. So he's like, all right, brothers and sisters, I'm taking dad's house, the one out east. Fast forward a couple of years, he starts making even more money, and he buys the house right behind it. And he took the fence down in between. So he's got these two houses that back up to each other with a big old backyard that just connected the two. So he lived in the one big house, and then he had the other house that he either kept vacant or rented out when he wanted to. And he's like, yeah, the rental house is yours. Come and use it. Stay as long as you want, because I don't care if you stay there every damn day. Like, that's the kind of guy that Jimmy was. And, he really showed me what it was to not just go above and beyond for your clients, which he definitely does and still does to this very day, but also go above and beyond for your team. Because if you don't take care of your team, somebody else is going to take care of your team.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
So for you then, obviously, like you said, you had so many people, especially Jimmy. And I said, we may need to send him this episode so he can catch the shout out.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about what it was like to take those opening steps. You talk about small steps forward daily, those opening steps when you go out, all right, round 2, what do we need to do to make this one successful?
So I swore to myself that I'd never do business again after the first one.
I think we all do that.
Yeah. So I guess it was 2-ish years, 2.5-ish years into it. I'm in a relationship. I'm about to get married to my ex-wife. And this is 2008, 2009, I got married. So this is roughly 2008-ish. And I'm like, man, I love Jimmy. I like doing this kind of work because we were doing some cool stuff. Like I could do whatever I wanted in that store as long as we made money. That was basically the rule. Hey, I trust you. You're really good at what you do. This is your department. Have at it. As long as we make money on basically everything that comes in and out of this place, we're good. So I start getting the itch. Like, all right, well, this drive is getting old. I love Jimmy to death, but I don't want to live in this backup house for the rest of my life. And I'm an ambitious human. And after a while, if I'm stuck in a place and I see stagnancy or I don't see a massive opportunity for me to excel and grow, it stifles me inside. It actually stifles my creativity, it stifles my drive, and almost puts me into like a tailspin depressive state. Okay. So this thing's coming. And like when it comes, I become an asshole. No other way to put it. Like I get snappy. I bark at people, and like I'm finding myself barking at the people who are there, who are trying to help me because they truly love and care for me. Jimmy being one of them. And I'm like, man, this ain't cool. Like something's got to go here. Now, some background stuff that's going on at the same time to add to this. I'm about to get married, so there's all craziness and chaos there that comes along with this big old New York wedding that we're putting together. 200 plus people, by the way, right? And I'm working side jobs. I'm hustling after the store hours. Like I'm on the road, either doing remote starts at people's houses. My soon-to-be business partner in my GPS install company, him and I were buddy. We worked at a shop years ago, and we stayed connected since then. And we're doing side work out of his house almost every night too. So I'm coming home. By the time I get home, it's 7:00, and this is the routine. 7:00, I'd be home by 7:15-ish, right? Grab some quick food to eat, run upstairs and sleep until 9:00. Get out of bed, shower quickly to try to wake myself up, and then I would be at my ex-business partner's house, which is about a mile away, by about 9:30. From 9:30 to 4 in the morning, we would grind it out, working on people's cars. And we weren't just doing basic work. Like we were doing full-blown custom audio systems. I mean, full complete teardowns, interior rebuilds. Like it was work. And like we're both two really skilled guys who love doing it. And this is the kind of side work where, don't listen, IRS, everyone's paying you cash. So like this is great for me because I got a wedding I got to pay for. I got to get a house for this new woman I'm in this relationship with. Like all this stuff's coming together. So now it's like, dude, this drive and working for somebody else is getting old because I'm making just as much, if not more, on the side hustle. I've been in this industry for so long that people know who I am. They know who my now ex-business partner is because he was also like a big name in the community. And one day we looked at each other because he was working a corporate job at the time. He was actually working for one of the GPS companies that we wound up subcontracting for. He comes to me and he's like, we're burning the candle from both ends hard. Like he's like, I barely sleep. I know you barely sleep, and we still show up and get all this stuff done, and we make good money. He goes, I just got word that I'm about to get laid off from the corporate job, and they are switching from an in-house GPS installer crew to a subcontractor model. And if we hustle and go start a business, we can land this contract kind of deal. It's like, oh, that kind of makes sense. Plus, we have enough of this other retail, car audio, remote starts, drop-down TV work that we're doing. Like, we can make some good money, even just the two of us. We're going to have to hustle. It's not going to be easy, but we can make things happen. And that was the seed that was planted. And the way that I work is once the seed's planted, my mind processes things pretty rapidly. So I would say probably within 1, maybe 2 days, maybe 3 days, my decision had been made, right? And sometimes internally we know the decision's made, but we won't verbalize it to others. And long story short, I get married, July 4th, 2009, I get married. I go on my honeymoon. I get back. I work for Jimmy Speed World for maybe another month. And I said, hey, I got to go to breakfast with you one morning. I have to have a conversation. And now, keep in mind, this is 2009. Like the economy just took a massive dump. And I go out to breakfast at our, like me going to breakfast with Jimmy Speedwell wasn't a big deal. Like we did it all the time. So we go to our favorite spot and we sit down. It's like, look, I got to have a conversation with you. It's like, I'm giving you my 2 weeks notice. And he's like, he looked at me like a father. He's like, he goes, I don't have any questions about you doing it and being successful with it. He goes, what scares the shit out of me, he used to call me Tommy. He goes, what scares the shit out of me, Tommy, is you're choosing to do it right now when the economy, the bottom just fell out of the whole deal. He goes, I'd rather you come to me and tell me you're about to become a cop right now. Because at least you're guaranteed something. He's like, you just got married. Knowing you, you're probably going to have kids soon too. He wasn't wrong. Right. So, he, as a father figure in my life, which he was also, he was concerned about what was going to happen to me. But here's the best part, right? And this is for all the leaders listening here. And this is for parents too. As tough as that conversation was, as tough as it was for him to receive that news, he still gave me the pat on the back and said, I support you and good luck in your endeavor.
Yeah, which I know is a tough thing to do. You mentioned that. I was imagining his facial expression. As you mentioned, he looked at you like a father.
Yeah.
That mix of pride and fear, maybe like a smidge of disappointment because you're leaving. I know that look. I know that look. I have 3 boys, oldest of which are in their 20s now. One's getting married, and one actually is a police officer. And a lot of that stuff, especially him as a police officer, took place right as the pandemic hit.
Yeah.
And you're always concerned about what's going to happen if they do this or if they do that. And I had the same thought about myself because I started my business at the height of the pandemic shutdown. I was working for a gym at the time, and everything shut down, including gyms. And I had to do something. It scared the living daylights out of me. So I could only imagine at that time, when you're talking about, it's not the pandemic, it's the entire economy has shut down. Wanting to start a business at that point had to be as frightening as anything you've probably ever experienced in life.
Yeah. Yeah, it was scary. It was unknown, but it forced me into the fire. So from a growth perspective, keep this in mind. I'm 29 years old. Okay. Small business. I've been in that game a long time. Am I the expert? No, definitely not. But I've got some experience, and I'm really good at what I do at the time. But here's what happens. Like fall back even further. I'm 17. I land my first job in the car stereo business. I apply to be an installer at this local place in a town that I grew up. Guy hires me on a Friday. I was dressed nice. I was dressed like Jake from State Farm. I had the khakis on, the golf shirt. So awesome. I'm like, oh man, finally. I leave. Monday I come back wearing just plain blue jeans, a t-shirt, and I got my little Craftsman metal toolbox. And the owner of this company who interviewed me catches me walking through the showroom in the front to the back where the shop is. And he goes, what are you doing? Like almost like he was pissed at me. I'm like, oh, I'm this 17-year-old kid. I just got hired. And like, I have no confidence in myself at this point in time. Like, you hired me on Friday. I got my toolbox like we talked about. I'm going to the back to do work. And he goes, no, you're not. I was like, like, did this guy change his mind? Like everything dropped in my, your stomach just drops, right? And he's like, you're too clean cut for that. He goes, go put your toolbox in your car. He threw me a shirt. It was a logoed shirt for the company, like a golf shirt. He goes, throw that shirt on and get up front and sit behind that counter. I was like, well, what do I do? He goes, someone will be there soon to help you, but if anyone comes in, just greet them and come and get one of us. So this guy throws me into sales. And at the time, I was so pissed off because I just wanted to be the installer. I wanted to work on cars. And not knowing it, but that was setting me up for future success, right? So fast forward, I'm working for Jimmy. Like I've had my own business at this point in time, and we were doing a couple $100,000 a year in my own business. And if you're closing sales and you're bringing in income, and it's in the 6-figure realm, you have some sales skills. I hate to break it to you. Whether you want to put the sales hat label on yourself or not, like you have to be in sales if you're a business owner. So cool. I got the sales thing down. But now, like, what's the next step with this? Oh, okay, cool. Now we get into this business of this GPS tracking thing. And now the next evolution of me as a business owner needs to evolve. I am not comfortable writing with written language. I am not comfortable sending emails because it's not something I've done on a daily basis. Up to this point in time, I had a damn AOL account, and the only thing we emailed back and forth was some dirty jokes to the guys. Right? You know what I'm talking about because you're probably on one of those lists. So, it's like, hey, this new version of me has to evolve. So now, okay, it's 2009, and we're subcontractors for some really big corporations that manufacture, sell, and distribute tracking devices to commercial vehicles. So it's a big company selling to a smaller company or even another big company, and we show up as the wrench to put the gear in the vehicle. We have to be professional at all times. Whether I'm an installer and work on cars for a living or not is irrelevant. If I'm going to communicate with any of these people, I better show up as a professional. And I had to up my game and up my game really fast in order to play at that level. And I didn't know it at the time, once again, but it was forcing me to become a pro at communicating. And what I was learning here, what I was doing here, fast forward to 2018, helped me with writing my book because of all of the communication I'd practiced up to that point.
I know for a lot of people, and we're going to get into small steps forward daily here in just a minute, but for a lot of people, when they become successful in a business, the next threshold or iteration, if you will, is now teaching. Teaching, educating others. And we all know, whether it's whatever industry it is, Wayne Gretzky was the best hockey player of all time, always will be. Really wasn't a very good coach. So it doesn't always translate very well. What was it like making that transition, from doing it hands-on to now teaching people how to become a successful business owner?
Fulfilling. It's the best way to describe it. I'll give you the story. So I'll give you this. This is a piece that I struggled with hard. I went from being the blue collar worker who would show up at the job site and install the tracking devices, dash cameras, or put the audio system in the car. And there's tangibility to that. So I would start a project at, let's say Monday morning at 9:00, and by 3 p.m., 4 p.m., we've got a result. You could touch it, see it, feel it. It was there. When it came to learning more about business and now building the business, growing the business, implementing the systems and the processes, all that stuff, the marketing, the sales, all the crap that on the back end of the business that no one thinks is sexy, because it's really not. Building that, I struggled with because it was like, and my business partner did too. It was like, he was like, hey man, you've been gone for a week. What the fuck have you been doing? Like, we got work to do. There's cars out there. I'm like, well, someone's got to build this thing if we're going to get it to where we want it to go. And the reality, and this is where we talked about earlier about the ROI, everyone wants that instantaneous return. I learned here too, and this definitely helped, was, okay, I'm going to work on the back end of the business today and probably tomorrow and probably the day after and the day after that. I am not going to see the fruits of my labor for 30, 60, 90, 120, 180 days. Right. So the tangibility comes long after you do the work when it comes to building something that's going to sustain. Kind of similar to losing weight and holding it off long term. Right. So there's lots of correlations here. I love the correlations between the fitness realm and business because they are unlimited in my experience. So that was a big change there. So now it is fast forward 2016, 2017 ish. Facebook groups are a thing. And they're starting to take off and get some good traction. And I'm sitting down having a talk with my business coach at the time, and his name is Dean, sitting in his office. And I'm like, man, these are the problems in the tracking industry from the installer's perspective. And I like rattle. I'm in there complaining. It's a bitch session, right? I'm just in there complaining, right? And we would start out like that sometimes just to kind of offload this crap off your chest so you wouldn't carry it around for the rest of the week and be an asshole to your team members or come home and do the same thing to your significant other. kids. So he's like, hey, look, you brought up some valid points. Why don't you do something about it? It's like, oh God, like, why do I pay this guy? So he plants the seed, which he's good at. And I was like, we kind of went on and we did our coaching session for the day. And I left there and I'm thinking about it. And I'm thinking, I can't get it out of my head. And I'm thinking about it. A day or two later, my ex-wife and I, we hop on a flight to San Diego, California to go attend a marketing event, believe it or not. We get to San Diego and we get into the hotel, and like looking back, she probably wanted to murder me that day, and rightfully so. I'm the kind of guy, when I get the idea and the inspiration, like it has to happen pretty much effective immediately, or I lose the idea. Right. And even if I write it down, I sometimes lose the drive to go after it from that point. Mm-hmm. We get into the hotel, I open up my laptop, and instantaneously I sit down and I create a Facebook group. And the name of the Facebook group is still active to this day. It's called GPS Tracking Installers. I put together a community of like-minded individuals who happen to be in the GPS space. More specifically, not just the GPS space, but people who installed the tracking devices, just like my company was doing. Because we were running into problems where it was like, hey, let's say, like, for instance, you get a Honda Accord. Like we want to pull a data sheet and figure out what we got to do to put stuff in your car. It's no big deal. That information is everywhere, right? Especially in the aftermarket car audio world. You pull up to a job site and you're rocking a 2015 brand new at the time Freightliner M2 box truck. Like there's no schematics for that. I call it Freightliner. Good luck with them giving it to you. Right? They don't want you touching the thing. So now it's like, we're working on these vehicles where we can't pull tech sheets from them. And like, I need a resource of others who do what I do, who understand what I do, who I may have a technical question. It was a selfish need that I was trying to fulfill at first. But I said, hold on a second. If I need this kind of help, and my team, because at the time I had 20 something employees at this time, if my guys in the field need this help, that means there's countless other people in the industry who need this help too. What if we all came together collectively inside this Facebook group and just helped each other from a technical standpoint? Right. So now I'm thinking in my mind, spinning this thing even further out. It's like, but if it gets busy in there and people start commenting and going back and forth and helping each other, the true A players in the industry are going to bubble themselves to the surface. They're going to become the cream, right? And we want to scoop that cream right off the top. I'm going to go recruit all those suckers. And they're going to be working for Top Class, and they won't even know what hit them. And it did work in some instances. In some instances, it didn't work, right? So, like, still to this day, that is an active Facebook group that I run and manage, and I'm still in it. Even though I'm not in the tracking industry anymore, I still go in there and help those guys because that industry set things up for me where it was able to provide a lifestyle for me, provides things for my kids and my family and experiences. So like I feel almost obligated to give back to the industry that was able to give me so much success. So the fulfillment part of this question that you asked initially, and then why I said like I get fulfillment from it. I start this group and I would go live in that group all the time. I still do. And I would just help people. And guys started calling me. Hey, you got 10 minutes? I got a couple questions. Hey, I'm in this situation. Hey, and I would get some personal stuff that would pop in there too, which like I didn't really expect, but it kind of comes along with the territory. And I started helping these guys, and it opened up this sense of fulfillment in me. And I'm like, man, like the business is good and all, but to be quite honest with you, it's very transactional. Like I'm just a number to the GPS company. The person who we're showing up and doing the install for, they don't give a crap who we are. We're just a subcontractor, right? And the federal government got involved and really screwed things up. So they mandated that certain over-the-road truckers had devices installed, and if they didn't have them installed, they were getting serious fines and infractions. So now we're showing up and putting these tracking devices in these big trucks, and it didn't really necessarily make sense for the guy who was the owner-operator. Like, what does he need a tracking device for? Right. And now the government's saying, no, we're telling you need one. So we're showing up to Jose's house in the middle of central Jersey to install a tracking device in his over-the-road tractor. And that guy doesn't want us there. What has nothing to do with this thing? Mm-hmm. Right. So it's like, oh, okay, like this doesn't feel warm and fuzzy. Yet I've got Um, I've got these people over here in business, in the business world, and when I help them, now I feel warm and fuzzy and fulfilled inside. And that's what really kickstarted the whole thing for coaching and consulting for me. I saw other people doing it. I saw how other people had taken their story and crafted it into a book or something similar to it. I saw how these people were getting opportunities to go and speak on stages or at events or teach classes and help other people in mass, not just one on one. And I'm of the mindset usually like, hey, if that guy can do it, why can't I? Right. And look, you and I both know there's certain things that some humans just can't do, right? Like some people are just stronger than others. Some people are taller than others. It is what it is. But for the most part, if you put your mind to it, there's nothing stopping you.
100%.
Yeah. So I went for it.
I don't blame you. Well, I mean, you always struck me as that kind of person. Once you kind of sink your teeth into something, that you're going to go for it full bore. Uh, I mean, 4 simple words: small steps forward daily. Simple but profound words. How did that come about? I guess where did that source of inspiration to create? I don't want to call it a mantra or anything like that because it makes it sound cheesy. But just it's a mindset. How
Yeah.
did that come about?
Uh, in my top class days, so you start this self development, you start working with coaches, and all of a sudden it was like, whoa, I got a lot of work to do. I didn't realize I didn't know half the shit I didn't know. We got a lot of work to do. We got to do these core values. We got to hire. We got to build a hiring process. We got to put a website together. We got to learn how to become a marketer. We got to learn how to implement CRMs, and we got to streamline our billing process and the way that we collect money. How do we collect money when someone doesn't pay? Like, oh my god, all this noise, right? So keep in mind, like as I start this process, I'm still in the field as an installer in my own company. So it got to a point where I would get myself out of the field for a couple weeks, couple months, and then a massive project would come in, and all of a sudden I got to do it. You know, for instance, we did a 5,000 unit GPS install for the New York City Board of Education. And we had 90 days to install 5,000 units. It was every hand on deck because we were under a time crunch. So like, okay, whatever business building I'm doing now is out the window because I got to go in the field and help these guys. So it really stemmed from that, knowing that, hey, at this point in time in my life, I cannot afford to only work on the business. I still got to do some work inside the business too, right? And for those who are listening, like, don't fall into the trap like you only get to work on the business. But still to this day, like I find days I'm working heavily in the business. It is what it is. It's part of it, right? But I'm much more aware and conscious of it now too. So the small steps forward daily really stems from that, knowing like, oh shit, I got to go back into the field. And like we got projects. I may be back in the field for the next 3 days, but I'm promising myself that I'm either going to get up early or I'm going to get home as early as possible because I'm going to put 30 minutes into that process that I want to design. I'm going to put an hour into, building out the sales workflow or the sales process. I'm going to put an hour into crafting the next ad for the new position we got to hire for. Right. So regardless of what was going on in my life, whether it was personal or me being on the road for the business, I'm still going to ensure that I'm building for the future version of the company too.
Well, I know one thing for sure, and obviously with this show being Healthy Lives, Healthy Business, it's that, I mean, you know as well as anybody, there's a direct correlation between, the way we take care of ourselves and the way we take care of our customers, our clients, our business, our family, all of it. They're all interconnected. Yeah. And I know I've enjoyed, as much as I enjoy your posts about the business world and how to approach it and small steps forward daily, I've also been especially intrigued about your own personal health and fitness journey. I'll be honest, and it's great to see it from this side of the coin, because so many people tell me when they see my old photos, my before being fit photos, when it looked like me ate me at one point, and they're like, no, that's not you, that can't possibly be you, it doesn't even look like you. And I say the same thing when I look at your old photos from back in the day. I said, that can't be Thomas. There's no way that's Thomas. And sure enough, it is. Talk about what that's been like for you and how much of it has impacted every other aspect of your life, personal and professional.
It touches everything because, like you said, they're all interconnected. I grew up as an athlete. I played football and baseball in little league outside in the town, and then football was my jam. Like I really liked football, and I was decent. I wasn't great. I was to the point where I was getting scouted to go play some college ball, and I wound up getting hurt my senior year. So like I was decently fit up until the age of 21. Right, 21 was when I started the first business. That's when the health and fitness went right out the window because the business took everything. Like nothing else mattered in my mind except for the business. Relationships went out the window. Health and fitness went out the window. Food, that's an afterthought. We'll eat when we're hungry. Matter of fact, we're going to skip when we're hungry. We're going to eat when we're starving and we're in full blown like serial killer mode. And if someone comes at me, I'm going to stab them in the eyeball with a pen because I'm so hangry. Right. And when you get that way, you just eat whatever because you just want to satisfy that need, right? And that's when we start eating the real crap food, pizzas and Burger King and fast food out the yin yang. And, living in New York, that crap's everywhere. Plus, we got really good bagels, and I like bagels, just saying. It's one thing I miss down here in Texas. I got to tell you. So this goes on and on and on. I wind up getting married. I'm married already. No, I'm not married. So, get married. Go into the second business. The second business for the first 5 years, we do everything the same way I did in the first business. On the road, a zillion hours a week. And, I've been very open about this too on social media for those who follow me. Like I was a daily drinker, probably from the day I got married until a year and a half, almost 2 years ago. Right. And I never thought of myself like as an alcoholic. It was, come home and pop a beer open and relax. Some days it was 1, some days it was 3, some days it was 12. Right. And you consume alcohol in small increments and you compound that over time and see what happens to yourself too. Mm-hmm. Right. So you add all this crap up, me not knowing anything about nutrition and diet and not really caring what went into my mouth from a drink or a food perspective, zero fitness. So no exercise whatsoever for years and years and years and years. Wind up having some serious lower back issues, knee issues, shoulder issues. And then the excuse comes up like, well, I'm hurt. I can't do that. And I told those bullshit excuses for way too long. 2017 rolls around. It's funny. The timing of everything overlaps here. 3 or 4 days before I went to that San Diego trip and fired up that Facebook account, I hired my first personal trainer and started working out with her in the mornings. Okay. I got photos from me in San Diego. I'll dig them up and I'll send you one after this. I don't even recognize myself. And the alcohol consumption then was high. And at the time I was on a kick drinking cocktails. I was drinking Tito's with orange juice and a splash of cranberry. And we go to this awesome hotel in San Diego and the bartender's like, oh, you like these? Cool. I'm going to make them for you with fresh squeezed orange juice now. I'm like, they were amazing. Okay. They were so good. You have a couple of those a day and all the sugar content that comes in juice. Like even though juice is good for you, you have too much juice and all of a sudden you're going to swell up like a tick. Mm-hmm. So I get real tired of feeling uncomfortable in my own skin. It's 2017-ish. And there was a kid that I grew up with who I had seen on Facebook, right? That he was a personal trainer at a Blink Fitness half a mile from my house in New York. So I'm at a bar one night by myself after I had just gotten into a verbal altercation with my ex-business partner in front of a client, not my prettiest moment in my career. And I'm kind of just sitting there, not wanting to go home and kind of thinking about the night and the situation. And then also like, I am not happy with me inside. This has got to go. Message this dude. And I said, hey man, see your trainer over at this gym. What's it look like to start working with you? And he's like, sorry, man, can't help you. I just quit. So
of course,
now I'm like, oh, so like I finally, you go back to, you get to that point where you ask for help. I finally get the balls to ask for help. And this guy sort of kind of shoots me down. But in the next breath, he's like, but I got you. It's like, okay, what's up? He's like, look, man, he goes, I'm not working there anymore. He goes, I'm a full-time teacher. I was doing that kind of on the side. However, there's a woman who's there. She's amazing. She's a bit older than us, but she's really dialed in. She knows her stuff. Here's her number. Text her and see what happens. Long story short, I text this woman. She's a sweetheart. Her name's Alex. I start working out with her, and I worked with her probably for 3 years. And the 3 years that I worked with her, I got stronger, but I did not see a single physical change to my physique. I was also still eating like shit and drinking alcohol daily, right? But overall, I saw the improvements when it came to the strength perspective. I saw the improvements when I would go to a job site, and like we did a lot of 53-foot trailers, like tractor trailer trailers. Mm-hmm. We do backup cameras and temperature probes and sensors inside of them. And if people here don't know this, I don't know how many people have stood at the back of one of those trailers, but the deck is about my head height. I'm 6'4". Okay, like I'm not a small human. Okay, like that sucker's high, and you got to climb up there to get in. And I knew that I was on the right path because, you know, a couple months prior, I'd gone to a job site and I had climbed into the back of this trailer, and I was all winded, like, oh man, that was rough to get in there. And I go to this job site a couple of months after starting to work out with the trainer, and dude, I popped up into the back of this trailer like a spring chicken with extra energy. And I was like, oh, damn, that was a lot easier than it was last time. Like, I hadn't dropped any weight. I just got stronger. So then in there, I'm hooked. Cool. So I still show up. I'm still showing up doing a thing. And it was a slow process, Victor. It was a very slow process. COVID hits, and we get about 3 weeks into COVID, and I fell for the trap like everyone does. Oh, all of a sudden the government said you can sit on your fat ass and do absolutely nothing and you're good. I did it. I sat home, drank Coronas, and ate Oreos until it was, you know, overflowing. And about the 3 week mark, I was like, dude, this got to go. And 75 Hard was about a year old at that point in time from Andy Frisella. I fired up the program and went down that rabbit hole. And that was the first big transformation that I had. I went from 283 to 253 in 75 days. Wow. And, you know, in New York, there weren't any gyms open. So it was me, the pavement, and the hardwood floor at home. And that was it. Hired a trainer to help me at home with home workouts, knowing that I had no equipment whatsoever. Mm-hmm. And that was probably one of the best things I could have done there as well, because I needed that person to hold me accountable in basically, hey, like, this is new for me. I'm pretty familiar with what goes on in the gym, and I can walk into a gym and hold my own there at this point. But like, if I'm home alone, like, I don't know what exercises to do. You know, push-ups, sit-ups, jumping jacks, cool. Like, who doesn't know that? But that gets real boring about 3 or 4 days into 75 Hard.
Well, I tell people all the time, and I get the same look no matter how often I say it. I have my own coach, my own health and fitness coach. Mm-hmm. And people look at, actually, he gave me that same look when I asked him to coach me. You know, but and I tell people it's for the same reason why you hire me or you hire anyone. Yeah. It's, you know, that if you have we can fool ourselves. We can convince ourselves of anything. But if we have someone that's going to hold us accountable, all of a sudden that's a different animal entirely. Now we're more hyper aware of what we need to be doing. You know, so it's been great watching you. You know, folks, the stuff that he lifts, I could only dream of lifting. And it would probably be the last thing I ever do on this planet, because I will die if I lift what he lifts. You know, he's just a strong human being, but a great human being at that.
Thank you.
And you've accomplished so much. I mean, I'm sure what I read in the intro was only a small snippet of what you've been able to accomplish. What's next?
You know, you're aware of this, Victor, because obviously, you know, we're connected and we converse every so often. But like, I've gone through some massive changes on the personal side of the house since the last time we recorded. You know, I went through a divorce. I'm in a new relationship with an amazing woman, and we both come from a relationship where we created kids. Like, she's got 4 of her own, I've got 3, and now all of a sudden this is the Just Add Water Brady Bunch family. But you know, it's at first, again, it's terrifying. It's like, oh my God, like, what if this doesn't work? Like, I'm getting involved with a relationship. I love her already, but like, are the kids going to gel? Are they going to work together? What's this going to look like? You know, and it's amazing when things are supposed to be how they just click together the right way. And I love her kids as if they're mine. She loves mine as if they're hers. We're respectful to each other. We take care of them. Are we hard on the kids? Yeah, we are, because we demand a lot. We expect a lot from our children as well. But the things that we have taught each other in this short year and a half that we've been together, um, hey, we have different parenting styles, but I've now taken some of her methods and she's taken some of my methods, and we combine this thing. And it's like, oh, wait a second. Now we're talking, right? So those have been some of the big, massive changes on the personal front for me. And anyone who's been through life altering stuff like that knows that when the heavy stuff comes in like that, death of a loved one, death of a parent, death of a child, God forbid, like when this heavy duty stuff comes into your life, it often requires you to pull away from your company, pull away from your business. Like the business, dude, cool. Like, yeah, business is important and all, but at the end of the day, my personal well-being and the well-being of my children trumps anything that I could ever do for a client, trumps anything that I could ever do for myself in the business world. So with that being said, I kind of took a hiatus from business. I still continue to show up for my existing clients, but I wasn't pushing the gas pedal down to drive business forward because I had so much personal crap to handle and take care of. Going back into it is like, when I closed my first business, I would have told you that was one of the most difficult years of my life. In the middle, my twin son, Thomas, at the age of 6 months, had an intestinal blockage. I would have told you that was the second most difficult year of my life, especially the first year of the twins being here, right? That's chaotic to begin with. And then one of them has a major health emergency. And this past year the season that we came through, like that just took the cake and made those two look like child's play. And I'm still here, right? I'm stronger than before. I'm more resilient than ever. I've proven to myself what I can handle and do well with or do okay with. And now, you asked the question, like, what's next? Brother, we're doing it, right? Like before we hopped on, I told you about, a client that we just signed a deal with, and I went and worked with them yesterday in person. So the gas pedal's back down. Step It Up Academy is back in growth mode. We've got new products as well. So, for those who are listening, we do business coaching and consulting for small businesses. Right. I've got a ton of experience in the service-based business space, but there isn't a business that I haven't been able to go into and make some suggestions and tweak some things where we don't see an improvement in what they got going on. So we've got, I always have my one-to-one stuff, and I always will have that. But realistically, one of the things that I've discovered over the past 2 years is not every business owner is ready to pay $3,000 to $5,000 a month for that one-on-one consulting. Very valid. So what about all these people who are over here who still need help? Like, what are we doing with them? We just kicking them to the curb? Or are we just letting them go out there and flop around like a wet fish, trying to just figure it out? Because like you and I, we both played that game for a while, right? It doesn't work well. So what we've done is we've created startup community at Step It Up. So startup community, it's I don't want to say it's cheap because it's not cheap, but it's an entry level program where people can come in and work with us for a year. It's a 1 year commitment, right? And we help them implement. Stage 1 is your foundation, mission, purpose, core values. Let's build them out. Let's introduce them to your team and get everything in place. Phase 2 is let's design and build and implement the systems that any business really needs. Sales process, hiring process, marketing plan, follow up, all those kinds of things, right? And then the third iteration of it, the third stage, is now we're going to scale this thing. So what do we need to do? Who do we need to hire? Who do we need to bring on? What needs to get delegated off of your plate so we can go and repeat the cycle and keep fine tuning this business, which is, it's just a cycle. And every iteration that we improve this thing, you're going to elevate and grow.
That's awesome. Well, I mean, that's an incredible opportunity for a lot of people out there. It's like you said, not everybody can afford $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, but certainly they still have, the desire, the determination, the dedication to want and go to and learn. And then when you implement what you teach them, the core values, just all the knowledge and education that comes with it. Trust me, folks, it's an absolute bargain. I'm telling you that right now. because what you're putting into it, you're going to get a heck of a lot more out of it.
Yeah.
So tell everyone where they can find you, because I know somebody out there listening is going to say, I need some Tomas in my life.
Yeah. Best place is connectwiththomas.com. It's a little landing page. It's got links to every place that I exist online that I know about.
And there's probably a few others out there that we don't remember.
Yeah.
Well, Tomas, this has been awesome. I appreciate your time. I know this actually went longer than most of my guest podcast episodes, but it was well worth it because I could sit here and talk to you for hours. That goes without saying. But I certainly appreciate all your time. Thanks again for joining in.
Yeah, Victor, thank you. You said it, man. I could sit here and talk to you all day. It's like just two old friends getting together and having a real authentic conversation. And I appreciate you. I appreciate you showing up and being a really good, authentic host as well. And keep trucking, man. I love seeing you do this.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Like I said, you're a mentor of mine, even though you may not have known that. Like I said, I pay attention to everything you say and do, and try to take away any nugget I can come away with that's going to help me be a better human being, much less business person, just a better human being, all in all, better husband, better father, better friend, you name it, and I appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Thank you, folks. Appreciate it again for you listening. Reach out to Tomas. You will not be sorry. He will get you to wherever you want to be and will teach you the right way to do it. And it's not going to happen overnight because nothing happens overnight. And of course, follow along on social media with him. I said I draw inspiration from his fitness routine and all the work he's done and just everything he does. And remember, once again, folks, make sure you subscribe. I didn't say this in the beginning because I was excited to get Tomas on. Make sure you subscribe, like, leave a great review, and share this show far and wide because I know there's always somebody out there that needs to know Tomas and needs to know that fitness is our business. Thanks so much for listening. I hope what we've shared on this show truly resonates with you. If you want to learn more about the health and fitness services I provide, head to my website, fernandezfit.com. If you're ready to connect with me about health and fitness coaching, send an email to info@fernandezfit.com or a text to 814-504-7774. And of course, you can find me all across social media, Victor Fernandez 123 on Facebook, Fernandez Fit on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, as well as the Healthy Lives, Healthy Business channel on YouTube. Thanks again for tuning in, and until next time, always remember, fitness is our business.